and welcome back to the Faith and Culture Show. I'm Catherine Camp, your hostess for the show. And this is where we dig into those difficult topics of our day in order to be able to have conversations with those around us, conversations that count, conversations with an eternal perspective. I have a returning guest today. He's a friend, and he's one of my favorite people to talk to because he always has something very unusual to me because it's not up my alley. However, he works to help governments be at peace and to be more, to recognize God and his governance over this world. That's a big task, but he's doing his part in his neck of the woods and beyond. And we're going to talk about that today. So let me bring him on. His name is Pastor Jack Stagman. Welcome back, Pastor Jack.
Well, hello, Catherine. What a beautiful introduction. So professional. I'm very impressed. Wow. Congratulations.
Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us again. I know that when I had reached out to you, we were talking one day and you mentioned some guests coming into the country from South Africa because of all the trouble that they're having. I know that one of your friends, Pastor Andre, he was talking about so much turmoil. I think many people, including his family, are considering leaving and moving here possibly to the United States. That's how bad it is. But I'd like to hear from you what is going on there, because I think that's something, for some reason, and I have my suspicions why the globalist-owned mainstream media does not cover it. We were very close to that ourselves. A lot of persecution of white people, and if persecution is not good, I don't care who it's against. That's just not, first of all, it's not something that is acceptable to God. But I want to hear from you what's going on and how your efforts with your guests went from South Africa.
Well, Catherine, it's a privilege to speak to everybody. Maybe I need to look at a little bit of history to help everybody. I immigrated from South Africa some 24 years ago, and I'm 76, and I was born in Johannesburg, and I was involved in business, but to the end of apartheid period of 94, I became involved in politics and co-founded the first Christian political party, and they're still in operation in Parliament today. Although small, there's still a Christian voice in Parliament. But if I could paint a picture what South Africa looked like, it was the top country in 54 countries in Africa in terms of military, education, finances, technical development, the military, every area you can think of, South Africa was number one. Now, I've just been doing some research. Senator, trying to think of his name now. I'll think of it just now. But anyway, so going back.
What state? Maybe I can help you.
I'm trying to think. I can't quite think of it right now. But anyway, okay. It's not that important. But there was a move 35 years ago, because what happened at the end of the apartheid period, there was a group of people, the leaders, called the Africa National Congress. They worked in partnership with Russia and Cuba, and they were trained mainly by Russia. So what happened was America was behind the scenes. I just remember who it was. Sorry, I should have remembered him. Senator Joe, Sleepy Joe, was at the head of this.
Oh my gosh.
And so he was a senator that was driving this force against South Africa and created all these internal pressures, and essentially brought South Africa to its knees by all of its international pressures and sanctions that it brought on South Africa. So everybody was hoping that in 1994 that there'd be a rainbow nation. That's what they referred to it. I mean, I'm not talking about anything else, but just all these different cultures coming together and blending together. I still remember in 1995 there was a international rugby match. Now South Africans are very good at rugby. They've been the world champions for the last couple of years. Anyway, we were playing the All Blacks, and we won that world championship in 1995. And I remember President Mandela was there with the captain of the rugby side, and these big planes were flying over, and there was so much excitement in the area that South Africa would become an amazing nation with all these people now working together. But sadly, what has happened over 31 years is that through what America did, caused a humanitarian disaster on a level that it's hard to imagine. When I go back there, I don't recognize my country. The majority of uh, government departments at a local level, 95% are inactive. Sewage is all over the show. There's electricity shortage 6 to 8 hours a day. There's violence and crime at a level never seen before. And I think President Trump recently, when he interviewed the president of South Africa again back a few weeks ago, he had a delegation come, and President Trump asked, "Well, how are things going there in South Africa?" And he said, "No, things are going fine." And he said, "Will you dim the lights, please?" And he
Yeah.
showed this video of 100,000 communists in the stadium from they call it the EFF, Economic Freedom Front. They basically are a Marxist organization.
But
And
I want can I stop you there? It's interesting how all of these Marxist communist organizations have these names. The Economic Freedom, is it
Freedom
Freedom
Front,
Fighters?
Economic Freedom Front, of all things, it's not economic. It's absolutely, it's too terrible because what they were doing, they were calling for the killing of white farmers in particular. And let me tell you, this is a very real thing. I have pictures that nobody wants to see. It's not a case of just going in to kill these farmers and shooting them. They torture them uh, in horrific ways. They burn the babies, they throw them in boiling water, they put irons on elderly people, and there's a torture that goes on. And what are they trying to do? If you have a look at Zimbabwe, they went through a similar situation 30, 35 years ago, where essentially all the land was confiscated. And today, 90% of the country is unemployed. And they use terrible tactics to destroy the farmers. Now, if you look at 1994, there were about 60,000 farmers. Today, there are only 30,000. And since the new government took over in 1994, the population has almost doubled to 66 million people, but the farming production has halved. So you can imagine where this is going. And so there is a crisis going on at a level never ever seen before. Um,
Wow.
every one of my family members have been attacked violently. They've been hijacked. They've been threatened. I mean, it's literally all my friends, in fact, 95% of my school friends are in other countries because they saw the writing on the wall in '94 and they left the country, and so people live in fear. Now I went back to South Africa 6 years ago, and the school that I went to in Johannesburg was very involved in sports and every activity you can imagine, in rugby and in cricket and tennis and swimming, just about everything you can think of. It was one of the top schools. When I looked at the school, I found the swimming pool with about 3 feet of black water and had not been used for 25 years. The grass around the pool was like 3, 4 foot high. This was just the pool. And then I asked one of the people that I found at the school, I think they were on vacation at the time, and I asked, what sports do they play there? They said that they have one soccer team in the entire school, whereas before they had teams in every area that you can actually think of. So you can just imagine, and the area, you can't believe it's become such a slum. You know, the area that I was brought up in, there's sewage, there's trash everywhere. I mean, it's when you go back there, I don't recognize the country. It's that bad.
That's
So,
disheartening.
but there are moves to do something about that. So that is a good thing.
Can you tell me, because I'm not familiar with any of this. I haven't followed it. So I want to find out, what part did the United States have back when Mr. Biden was a senator? And you
Yeah,
said he headed up the efforts.
yeah, he was. I've actually doing some research now, and I found many videos of him really attacking in a very bad way. So what I don't know is, was this intentional? Because what it's done, it's basically kept South Africa, who was the leading nation in Africa, it's essentially kept them in poverty. And if you have a look at the China in particular, 20 years ago, they were involved in about 4 African countries. They're now involved in 47 of the 54 African countries.
Who is they? Is that the Economic Freedom
Uh,
Front?
this is China in as a country. They've invested in, and one of the reasons is they basically are there to take the minerals. But the point I want to make is there seems to be a strategy to keep Africa poor. Now, this is the same thing as now South Africa has joined the same group of people as the other African countries, that they are now becoming poorer and poorer by the day. And I ask myself the question, was that maybe part of the CIA strategy originally in doing this was to keep them poor so that they can continue to rape the minerals and basically keep people in poverty? I don't have an
Mm-hmm.
answer for that, but I have a suspicion
Mm-hmm.
because that's what came out of it. Now, in our approach to President Trump, we've had some dealings with the State Department and also with the White House. We're saying, America may well have had good intentions, but we don't know, as I mentioned. But let's assume they had good intentions in helping to remove apartheid and bring in a new government. But what they brought in was a communist government, which essentially caused a humanitarian crisis. So, in what we are planning to do in South Africa, we said, Mr. President, what we need to do is correct a wrong that was created many years ago, and we're going to need many millions of dollars to be able to do this. And so we're not asking for a handout, we're asking for a hands to basically stretch your hands out and to help the people to recover themselves. Because there are 9 provinces in South Africa, to give you an idea, with 66 million people, and the white population are probably about 7%. Um, and then we also have what they call the colored community, which is also a significant community. When I say colored, it's where people intermarry, black and white folk intermarry. They call
Okay.
it colored. That's a term that they use. And then
Okay.
there's also about 2 million Indians. It's one of the biggest areas outside of India.
Okay.
So anyway, so of those 9 provinces, it's like a very wealthy businessman looking at a corporation that has been offered him that's just about going bankrupt. Now, of the 9 provinces or, or divisions, 8 of them are bankrupt and very badly run. And so there is a move afoot for the last couple of years to create an independent country out of the Western Cape. Now, Western Cape includes Cape Town. Everybody knows Cape Town, right? It's a
Pretty
population
much.
of it's a population of about 7 million people, to give you an idea.
Okay.
And it's not run by the African National Congress. There are other political parties that have taken it over, and it's the only province that is actually running effectively. And it's clean. Um, it does have crime, but it's not anywhere near the rest of the country, and it has the potential. And they want to call this the Cape of Good Hope. Now, over the last couple of years, there are a number of groups that have come together towards working with this idea to create the Cape Independence Group, and they right now they have the approval of about 50% of the total voting people in the Western Cape that they want to secede from the tyrannical, racist, communist government that's basically ruling over them at the moment. So there is the intent to do this, but without the help of America, we will never do this because it's significant. It's a big deal, and if they get this right, they will control about 41% of the new Cape of Good Hope would be taking that away from South Africa. So it's not going to be easy. So I'm the representative for this group, and I'm actually going over to South Africa on the 11th of next month. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
with your friend Don Blake, who you know, and we
Mm-hmm.
go together. And so we're going to sit down with the core leaders that have pulled all these ideas together to finalize a strategy document, how we're going to do this. And so the idea is to have a beachhead. Remember, in the last war, they always spoke about once we have a beachhead, you've got a foothold. And so, in order to look at addressing the entire country, we want to have a beachhead in one of the provinces and make that exceptionally attractive and make it workable so that others will look at that province and say, how did they get there? We need to have what they've got. So I think that's the goal. We can't take the whole country on because it's like a cancer that is metastasized. And we can't fix something that's metastasized and it's basically it's very, you can't do anything with it. Um, so that's what we're going to focus on, just one of the provinces. And there's a lot of momentum for this to actually happen. So I'm going to help the folk. You know, although I'm a US citizen and have been here 24 years, I was still born in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
My culture is African, whether I like it or not, and I love the land of where I was born. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm willingly helping these folk to try and do something to change their lives because of what they're going through. So that's the South African piece.
I know that in the United States, between 2021, and 2024 or 25, January 20th, that there were states who were seriously talking about seceding from the United States. And that requires quite a bit
It
in our
is.
country because of the way everything is set up. It would take voting on it. It would take they have to have their own money system, monetary system. I think Texas has gone to accepting gold, and I know that there are a couple other states like Wyoming, I believe they accept gold. Um, so what kind of process is it like in South Africa? Because your laws or their laws are different.
Right. That's a great question, Catherine. You remember when America seceded or gave the divorce papers to England? They had to write a Declaration of Independence. And if you analyze it, what was that document? It was actually a document of grievances. So that's the starting point, that
Okay.
they are writing the document, the divorce document, the grievances, the Declaration of Independence for the Cape of Good Hope. So that's where they're going to start. Second of
Okay.
all, yes, you're right. Constitutions are different in most countries, but fortunately, one of the people that were involved in writing the Constitution in 1994 managed to put in a clause on self-determination. So that allowed different groups to have self-determination and in effect would allow us to do what we're doing. However, it wouldn't get us across the finish line just by having that clause in. You have to have internationally recognized countries like America. That's why we're talking, with the Trump administration. You need to have at least one country that recognizes the actual documentation and the actual referendum. So you have to have more than 51%. Okay, so that's a starting point. So the team that they've got have figured out they need about $50 million. That sounds a lot, but to get it to start a new country with the amount of work, you've got to rewrite a brand new constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and you've got to look at all of these aspects. For example, when there's referendums in most countries, you normally have a day of a referendum, but you cannot do that in South Africa because of what they are wanting to do. the ANC Communist Party will object to it very strongly. And if you had to turn out at a voting booth, they would most likely have many troubles. And so people would be fearful of actually turning up, and you would be totally unsuccessful. So we've got to think out of the box. And what they've done is this whole voting thing will be done online on your cell phone, and not over one day, but over 4 months. So they're doing this and will be basically monitored by America and other countries as well. And so once that's finished and the referendum is over, what they do is they then take the actual figures of the people who said yes, and we believe we could get 70 to 80% behind this. And so that information goes into the Declaration of Independence, as well as a support letter from America. That's what we need for it to succeed, recognizing the new independent country. And so that would be very important. My guess is that there will be some legal hassles that we will have to go through, which could potentially take us a year to 2 years. So we have budgeted for that, for an international team to fight this internationally, because that's where we'll have to go. That is where the big fight will be, in the international courts. But I believe that a critical success factor, provided we have America with us, um, I think that we have a very good chance of actually winning this. So that's why I'm helping them, because I think they've got a good chance. They've got a great strategy in place. I wrote the strategy.
So it has to be great.
No, I'm only joking. No, I wrote.
No, I've seen your stuff. It's pretty locked in.
Yeah, no, the Lord is giving me that ability. Some call me like I have an apostolic calling for good governance, and I can see the big picture. But what I've tended to do is I write these ideas down, and then I get others to perfect them, because I'm just an ordinary guy. And you get a good team of people together. That's how we started the first landing. I wrote the first document, and the folk that came alongside perfected it. And we went along. So that's how we've developed this team in South Africa as well.
Okay.
Adding good value and making a lot of sense to a document, which maybe doesn't make that much of sense to start off with, but eventually it gets perfected.
Well, you're up against a very big machine with the CCP. They use underhanded tactics, and they're very tricky. Even though there's 99% poverty, I think you said, or 90%.
Now that's in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
In South Africa, I know that the unemployment is about 38%, but the people between the ages of 18 and 26, it's 66% unemployment. So you can imagine what's happening. Imagine if we
Well,
had 66% unemployment. It would be an absolute disaster. So,
do
so the
you?
Chi- so the Chinese are definitely involved in that. Um, you know, they have some very important strategic areas that they look into acquire, and that
Mhm.
is a harbor. There's a place called Simonstown, which is a naval harbor. There's also a deep water port that could have many ships in that as well, military ships. And I'm sure that they're after that. So we're talking with the US military to say, listen, America has not been involved in Africa for generations. And if you don't get involved in Southern Africa, we have an opportunity right now that the Cape of Good Hope could give you a lease for the shipping. There's also a military air bases there that are unused at the moment. America needs to catch a wake up and get involved in Southern Africa and have a foothold, at least, because China is doing it right around Africa and different parts of the world. And if we don't,
Yes.
they will. So
Yes.
that kind of strategic um, information is important. The other thing is, with the Panama Canal, there's been a lot of issues with ships not able to go through because of the volume. And then, of course, a lot of ships are attacked as they go near that area. The result has been is that shipping has more than doubled around the Cape of Good Hope in the last 2 years. So that's
Wow.
another important strategic point that the military need to look at, that they need to have access to the seas going around the Cape of Good Hope, because it's a very tip of Africa. So a very strategic position. So we're encouraging in our discussions with the military to guys say, look, we can see this, and we're just ordinary people. America needs to be there, and here is a way how we're going to do that. So we're encouraging America to take up its rightful role and be involved in Africa.
Right. It sounds to our benefit, actually, as a country, to
Yes,
be involved. So, and that's what obviously, in the end, that's what the people that we elect should be looking at.
absolutely.
When you had the team come from Africa, they wanted you to show them around. How much luck? I mean, if you can talk about it, if you can't,
Yes,
that's fine.
no, I can
But
talk
how
about
much?
it.
Tell us what happened. Did you meet with people? What
Yeah,
happened?
so that's really a good thing. First of all, the leader of this team has been in Parliament for 34 years, and he's also I would say, the political speaker for the Afrikaner nation, which is about 5 million folk in South Africa. And they also had a key business leader representing the business sector, and the chairman of the agricultural union, and they are connected to all the farmers. So obviously those were in very important areas, and they were invited by a number of groups to speak to organizations and also meet up with the Trump administration. And so they were well received. They weren't sent officially by the South African government. They came on their own because there was nobody speaking for the Afrikaans uh, communities. And they felt that they needed to have a voice to be able to speak up. And so the bottom line was, after all of these meetings, this is what came out of it. The Americans said, we want or would like to normalize our relationship with South Africa. However, we've got 4 demands. The one is, people must be appointed on merit and not based on the color of their skin. So if you have a look right now with the racial laws in South Africa, there's 141 racial laws, which is 4 times more than the previous apartheid government. And those racial laws include taking property away from anybody without any compensation, just as they did in Zimbabwe. So that was one of the stipulations. You need to address that. That is a problem for us. You need to address the farm murders, which you say is not an issue. It's a big issue, and you need to recognize that. The next one was the recognition of kill the farmer, kill the Boer, one settler, one bullet. That's what they're saying openly. The US government is saying, sorry, we cannot accept that. That has to be spoken against, and it has to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And the racial discrimination has to come to an end. So I can't remember the 4th point, but there were 4 points that they
Mm-hmm.
took home with them and said to the South African government, this is what the Americans are saying. If you want to normalize everything, this is what you have to do. And so far, they've sidestepped. They haven't done anything about this. They've spoken badly about America and President Trump. And so the other thing that has happened now is that the tariffs, because they've done nothing, and because they've aggravated America and spoken out against them, they're going to have 30% tariff. And also, if they're part of BRICS, they're going
So
to
they
have
got
another.
the letter.
They've got the message.
They
So
got one of those letters.
they got one of those letters, and I'll tell you what, the people are now jumping up and down because suddenly there's going to be a lot more people out of work. So I'm not quite sure how this is all going to turn out, but
Yeah.
it's been very, very interesting. Oh, another point: the ambassador for South Africa, he was lambasting President Trump. I mean, speaking really badly about him. So Marco Rubio gave him the boot and kicked him
Good.
out of the country. And really, it
Okay.
was, if you heard what he was talking about and saying, he definitely shouldn't have not been an ambassador representing a country from South Africa. So anyway, he was
Yeah.
kicked out. So
Okay.
they've become real bad boys. So interesting.
So we need another ambassador for South Africa.
Yes,
Can
me.
you? There, can you put yourself in there?
You know what's funny? I was talking with my wife, and I said to her, if we ever get this through and we get this new nation approved, I said, you know what? In my old age, I would love to become the ambassador for the Cape of Good Hope. So that was just something we were talking aside the other day, because I'm already here and I know the country better than most people.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
I
that's
mean,
something for the future we don't know about. But there's another interesting opportunity that's coming our way, which you might want to know about.
sure.
Do you remember on the 29th of April, the whole first landing team were visiting with the White House, and
Yes. This.
we
Yeah.
got this proclamation from President Trump recognizing the first landing covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So we came to conclude that there are three countries that have got covenants. Obviously, Israel. South Africa has a covenant going back to 1838 that a group of 500 people made with God. And last year, 5,000 people climbed a mountain in South Africa, and they took the U.S. covenant document and they rewrote it from a South African perspective, and they dedicated South Africa to God last year. And of course, now the other country, of course, now has been recognized by President Trump, is America is one of the covenant nations. So, having that in mind, this member of parliament that we met, Dr. Mulder, is his.
Wait. So wait. You have so much information.
I know it's just like
So
popping out of
are
my head.
you saying that the covenant that you wrote and that we
Adopted.
we put forth on the 29th and back in 2022 and then again in 2020 no 23 and 24,
Now you got it. It's
then
not.
they went, of
It's
course, then
not
President Trump signed it as a recognizing that
recognizing
this
it.
country is being covenanted back to God because we have asked for that. That covenant was taken to the mountaintops where?
In South Africa, in a city called Bloemfontein. So,
Wow. Was
it,
this because of people you know?
yes. Well, when I heard what they were doing, I said, listen, are you going to covenant with God? And they said, well, we know there's an original covenant. And I said to them, that's only for 7% of the people. What about all the other ethnic groups? So they took the document and they rewrote it, including all the ethnic groups. And they climbed the mountain, as say, last year, October, and they dedicated the country to God. Yeah, so there's another country, but it doesn't end there. It gets more exciting as we go into this. So um, here's what we realized. We know that President Trump has got 4 Middle East countries that have signed the Abraham Accords, right? But
Yes.
it's more of a secular document, from what I can tell. It's basically a document of peace, but it's written around the secular world. So what we know for sure is that President Trump is going to South Africa. I think it's the 21st to 23rd of November, and his reason is they're having the G20 summit there in Johannesburg. And guess what's happening? President Trump has been given the chairmanship for the G20 summit for 12 months. So he has to go there. He didn't want to go there, but in order to get the handover, he's got to go there. But now we
Mm-hmm.
are giving him some more ammunition to go. And it has to do again with the covenant. It's all coming back to the covenant. Going
Oh,
back in April, there were three things that Lord gave to me. The day before we went to the White House, we were asked to go and pray overlooking the Capitol building. Donica there and all of our team were there.
your
And the
team.
Lord, he gave me three things. Go back to origin, which we've spoken about before. We had to go
Yes.
back to our original, what was the original intent?
Yes.
Return to covenant. And the last one is let my people go. Remember when Moses went to Pharaoh, what did he say? Let my people go. Why was
Yeah.
that? Because they were under bondage. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that America is under bondage and so is South
Yes.
Africa.
Yeah.
So I started to pull all of these things together. And I was speaking to this leader of this political party that came out to visit. And he was telling me he wrote President Trump a letter in May. And he said there were 4 points. So he went through the 4 points, but the last one grabbed my attention. And it said, imagine if we could develop an Africa peace accord like you've developed in the Middle East. that will help South Africa in a significant way. Then I realized this is what we've been saying. We've got to go back to covenant, return to covenant, and to let
Mm-hmm.
our people go. So I got hold of my friend while he was here in Washington, D.C., visiting with the Department of State and the administration. And I said to him, would it be difficult to organize an invitation for President Trump to come and address the South African people, but from Parliament? He said, yes, we can do that because the president is going to be there for
Yeah.
3 days in November. So I
Okay.
said, next, I said, well, I'm busy preparing a letter for President Trump now. And we're saying to him, look, good work with the Middle East, but now we want to take this to Africa. And we want to identify those African countries who believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to join with the covenant partners from Africa. And I said to him, what we can do is invite President Trump to invite other nations, in other words, to publicly release the African Abraham Accords when he goes to that summit and he goes to address Parliament. So that is what our letter, which is going to President Trump in the next week, we're saying, look, Mr. President, there's a wonderful opportunity for you to continue working and encouraging other countries to have covenants together. So that's step number one. And at that event in Parliament, we're going to have the three covenant nations there. We're going to have Israel, America, represented by Mr. Trump, and the South African leader who will decide who that will be. And then they will invite people to join the African covenant. Step number one, there's another phase to that. Mr. President, when you come back, next year is our 250th anniversary, right? And we have another anniversary coming up for first landing to recognize the covenant on the 29th of April next year. So,
Mm-hmm.
would it not be a great idea for you to have an event at the Rotunda where he received his nomination and he became president?
Mm-hmm.
Invite leaders from Israel and from South Africa, and you go through the covenant, which you now have acknowledged, and invite America to basically to covenant with God. Can you imagine the impact on America? And all the cameras around the world seeing President Trump saying, I'm dedicating this land back to God, and I will be the first president in 419 years that recognizes America and dedicates America back to God in line with the original covenant. What is the impact of that going to be, number one? And
Yeah.
number two, he said, in addition to inviting Africa to become part of the African Abraham Accords, we're now inviting countries around the world internationally to join our covenant groups of countries. What do you
Oh
think?
man. Okay, I think that's awesome, and I think we need to continue to pray. I'm so glad that we're talking about this because for the listeners out there, please set your hearts on praying for this because we are up against the biggest spiritual battle, I believe, that's been on the face of this earth since, Satan tricked Adam and Eve in the garden. And then when Jesus did the final blows to the enemy by dying on the cross and resurrecting, this is a fierce battle. We are nearing the end,
We are.
and what a great way to just tell the enemy to get lost. And no matter what happens, we are going to recovenant these countries to God. I know that in Alberta, Canada, they want to secede because they don't like this communist Marxist move that's happening in their own country. It's all the globalists. They
Right.
just want dominant control and then to run their agendas, which includes depopulation by force. So this would be wonderful to happen, but the principalities and the powers, in the spiritual realm are going to really push for this not to happen.
Yeah.
So
So,
we're stronger. We have the
no,
Holy Spirit.
you know what? At 76 years old, with all the pain and suffering that I've gone through, and like we all go through, right?
Yeah.
I believe that I was born for a time such as this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's with all these challenges that you speak about, and there's a minefield of them. You know what? We are victorious through Christ because He has appointed us for a time such as this. And
Mm-hmm.
we have to take up our rightful roles as a
We
remnant of
do.
Christ. And there is suffering that will come as a result of that. And people have to make sacrifices, which many people are not willing to make. But
Nope.
the Lord is calling us to make those sacrifices. Just as those men founded our country, America, most of those men lost their homes, and many of them lost their lives. And there's a great sacrifice to make because we cannot see our land being totally destroyed because the enemy is out to destroy America. If it
Mm-hmm.
destroys America, it destroys the world.
The world.
Yeah. So
Yes. Yes. And so this is you are at the tip of the spear here. You probably never thought you'd find yourself
no,
in this
I don't
position.
want to be here either.
I'm just I am so praising God that I even get to hang on to coattails like yours and Dawn and Donica's and Robert and Jamie.
Yes.
I'm the rear of the train, but I don't care. It's
Right.
like I'm hanging on. And yes, it's going to take Christians to just really raise this to God and concerted, not just one night, but every night, every day that we wake up. God, this is yours. This is yours. What am I going to do today for you? What are we going to do, God? Guide me
Right.
today. Because those of us doing work for the Lord and just specifically focused on that, we get a lot of pushback
We
from
do.
it could be from family members, it could be come from all sorts of distractions. Um, but we just have to push it aside and say, nope, I'm not going to let the enemy distract me. I'm going to keep moving forward, and that's all there is to it. I mean, the documents that you write up are incredibly sound, and look at what God brought to you. This team of officials from South Africa. I know you led them into you had appointments for them that
Yes.
you got. And I know Dawn is very good at that, getting into have those doors open.
Yes, he
What a
is.
great team. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this opportunity now. So Don and I are going to South Africa so on the 11th of August. So
Mm-hmm.
we need a lot of prayer for that because all of these things are tackling. They're far bigger than us. We're just ordinary people. But when the Lord guides you, I wake up every morning and I say, Lord, this day I'm here because of you. I'm breathing
Yeah.
because of you, and I don't want to do anything unless you direct me to do it. And so
Yeah.
all of these things that I'm doing now, I'm absolutely, I know the Lord is directing. I got no hesitation in believing it. I can see it. And I'm not looking for people. They come into me and they come into us. And, everything really started with the first landing event 3 years ago. And from there, it's just been an explosion of people coming to us, like the remnant of God coming to us from everywhere. I mean, every day I'm meeting new people. Where did you come from? How did you contact me? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, it only can be God. So what
Yep.
I see is this: God has painted a picture for America and South Africa and many other countries. And we don't see that picture right away. But if I grab Catherine's picture and I know what you're all about, and I have the one next door to me, and we get 10, 20, 30 pieces, we start to put those pieces together. And what do we see? We start to see a magnificent puzzle of what the Lord has in store for us. And He's busy bringing His jigsaw pieces and the parts of the puzzle together so that we can see and to encourage us that He's in control at the end of the day. It's not us. It's, Satan thinks he's in control, but let me tell
Yeah.
you, at the end of the day, although things look dark, there are things happening behind the scenes right now that will blow your mind. And I think over the next couple of months, you're going to see what's happening in this world of ours. So I'm not discouraged. I am very optimistic. I trust my Lord to give you direction. I just compliment you for the program that you put together to reach people. You're an amazing person, and thank you for your
Thank
service.
you.
And
Thank
so
you.
we're looking to have some exciting times together.
I know. I'm very excited. It's like, wow, what an honor. Even though those 4 years that we've just been through were very tumultuous, for those of us who could see, for those who are ignorant, it's like ignorance is bliss. They had no idea. Then you had those who stick their head in the sand. But for those who could see, it was very traumatic. It was tumultuous. It was terrifying in many ways. But like you said, we had to just give it to God and say, okay, what do we do today? And I follow this pastor. His name is Kevin Zadai, and
Yes,
he
I know
was
him.
one of the pastors invited. Apparently, there's been a large group of pastors that have been invited to come to the White House and get briefings frequently with this administration. And they can't talk about things, but because they know what's going on behind the scenes. Um, there's, like you said, there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes. They're good things, and he is very spiritually in tuned with demonic entities, and I guess when they're around, he senses it. And he said when he went into the White House, he really felt like he was just going to have to pray and cover he and his
Yes,
wife. He said he didn't feel anything.
I understand.
He said, I was amazed. So, they've gotten, he said, now there were people who he could sense they, were oppressed by demonic activity, or maybe even possessed, some of them. But he said, as far as the grounds and the actual, the White House, he didn't sense anything, or the Capitol. I'm not sure where he went, maybe the Capitol. Anyhow, that was so it was so good to hear. And frankly, I don't believe in everything I hear, but I kind of wonder. It's like, well, I trust what he says, and if there was something, he would be asking all of us to pray and to go to DC and go into the rotunda and start laying hands on the staircases and just praying in the middle there. And but he has not said anything like that. So
Yes, well,
it's our window of opportunity,
yeah,
Pastor Jack.
we do have a window of opportunity. I was on a 3-hour call the other night. It was last two Sunday nights ago, and this gentleman who is he's going to help facilitate our event in South Africa. He was saying there's a window of opportunity that's open, and we need to get through it right now, and we need
Yeah,
to action right now, because that window is not going to be open for long.
that's right.
So I think that's a message for everybody. It's all hands on deck.
Yeah,
And what I've been saying now as we've been working on the idea of taking America back concept, we've got all these different people. Like you've got, your ability, your media ability to talk with people, relationships, and we all have our different lanes to run in. Some are 100-yard runners, some are long distance runners, and so whatever you're good at, what we've been trying to encourage local communities is to help identify people in the sphere of influence that they operate, and let's link them up with other people in their community so that they can be more effective together. And I think that strategy is such a simple one. And within the body of Christ, I was sitting at my church on Sunday at Cornerstone Chapel in Leesburg, Virginia. It's a church of about 6,000 people. And Pastor Gary Hamrick is an awesome pastor there. And I was thinking to myself, just imagine all the wonderful opportunities that we have and the wonderful people with such skills together, but they don't know each other really. And so if that is, I think, a cool thing, if we can bring our people together at a local level, and so that we can become more effective. Now, we've got a couple of models up and running. We've got one here in the Winchester area that we're working on for the last 2 years. So we're setting that up as a model for the country. And there's a lot of work being done, I think, in Virginia Beach as well, as you know. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of challenges that they face, but communities are starting to come together at a local level, and that's where it's all at.
Yeah.
And then lastly, shadow Republican Party. A lot of people saying, "What? What?" People don't realize President Trump, after he was elected, he said this publicly. Do you know that there was one state, the state of Oklahoma, where they voted for me 100%? All 77 counties voted for me, voted for Trump. But what he doesn't know, or what he didn't say, is that there was a shadow Republican Party that was started in that area. Many of them are pastors. And the reason for that there are many rhinos, who are basically Democrats that act and basically there
Yeah.
as Republicans. Now, in Virginia, for example, I was speaking to a leader that's well informed state-wise, and he said this: the state leadership of the Republican Party, 70% are rhinos.
Yeah.
Every
It's
every country, not every country, every state that you have similar situation, with the exception of Oklahoma now. And
mm,
so, also when you think about the legislative assembly, assuming 30% of the Republicans are rhinos, what that means is when you come to vote for anything, we the people will never get anything passed.
yeah.
So we have to address this issue. So it's not to start a new political party, it's to encourage and strengthen the Republican Party, but it's there
It's
to hold them accountable and to screen
yes.
people so that we remove the rhinos. And if
Mm-hmm.
we can do that, that's our dear friend Don Blake came up with that idea. And I've been encouraging Don, you're sitting on a wonderful idea, and we have to do this because there is a problem, and it's no good turning away and saying this is not a problem. It is a problem.
Yeah. It's a big problem. And that's where the average citizen needs to pay attention. And many people don't want to. And they feel like, okay, we have a conservative in the White House. We have things going on okay. So we worked hard for 4 or 5 years and we need to rest. No,
No,
really, we
no,
cannot
you
rest. We
cannot
cannot
rest.
rest. A lot of people are sitting back, and that's the whole purpose of keeping on and saying, no, you've got to get up and be a part of something, even if it's telling your pastor or having a serious conversation about having a small group that is politically aware. TPUSA Faith has small groups for churches, and or starting one of your own, or getting your pastor to understand that there's a communist overshadowing
Right.
that wants to move in, Marxist, and socialism is not the answer. There are pastors out there who think socialism is the answer, and it's not. That's what they want you to think. That's how they worm their way into cultures and countries, and then before you know it, your country is ruined. Look what you've talked about: Africa, South Africa. The same thing happened to Venezuela. They were doing great, and then was it Venezuela or Argentina? Maybe both. Now it's happening to Chile.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So no, we have to be really careful and see how your elected officials are voting. And if they're doing something that they're not supposed to, and they're not standing with conservative values, then address it, write to them, call them, and then give them the boot. Hold a primary, get them out of there.
Yeah, that's basically, we have really failed to do that. We've let all these people come in, and we
Mm-hmm.
are the responsible ones, so we have to fix it. And
Yeah,
so, but there is enough good people out there that are starting to connect together to realize God is bringing His remnant together. And I believe that they are preventing a total flood of ungodliness occurring in the nation. I mean, we've got a
yeah,
lot of bad things happening, but if they were all removed, what would happen to the country? It would be absolutely like the rest of Africa. So
yeah,
anyway, well,
really
it's
bad.
been wonderful. We've had some interesting discussions, and I hope we can have many, many more.
I do too. I do too. I want you to keep me informed, especially, how things go. When you and Don get back, I'd love to chat with you both and find out how things went. Because as we
That would
march
be good.
towards April 29th of 2026, it would be great to hear, hey, are we going to get President Trump to dedicate this country back to God, along with the others who want to do the same? That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well,
I
fortunately,
want to
we
be
got.
standing right there.
Well, yeah, we're all going to be there. So I've got Don pushing me, where's your proposal letter? So I'm trying to get all of that finished. And so before we go overseas, we want to go and deliver that letter to our
Okay.
friends at the White House.
Oh, good.
President Trump is going to love this because it falls in exactly with what he's doing. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole Abraham Accords, and now, of course, now the fact that he's recognized the covenant, we don't have to fight that battle. And of course, as you know, 99% of Americans don't know the history of first landing, that there was a
Nope.
covenant made. And so
Yeah.
this is all wonderful. And as part of those 3 points, return to covenant.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely vital. We have to return to covenant as individuals, as families, as local areas, and as a country.
Yes. Jack, thank you for all your hard work, because I know it takes a lot of thought and effort every day to just dedicate yourself to writing these letters, these covenants, and you're looking at it from a statement's point of view and a pastoral point of view as well, which is unique. Thank you.
It's lovely. Anyway, we'll talk some more when we get back from our trip, and we'll let you know what happens with our letter to President Trump.
Thank you. I want to know.
Thank you so much. And anyway, keep up the good work.
Thank you. You too. God bless you.
Okay, bye bye then.